Beginning with this year's elections, voting gets a whole lot easier.
Your mailbox is your ballot box.
Your ballot packet comes to you in the mail.
But only if you're a registered voter. If you need to register or update your address, do it today at elections.hawaii.gov.
Look for your free Hawaii elections guide in the newspaper or at these locations statewide.
The deadline to register for the general election is October 5th, so don't delay.
Hawaii votes by mail.
And aloha, thank you so much for being with us on this Aloha Friday. I'm Yunji Denise, joined by Ryan Kalei-Suji. This, of course, is Spotlight Hawaii, brought to you by the State Office of Elections. Remember, the deadline to register to vote in the general election is coming up October 5th, so make sure you go ahead and do that. Very easy to do that. And of course, this year, Hawaii does vote by mail. Ryan, today we are talking about a specific sector of our community that is heavily impacted by the new restrictions and the tiered system that the mayor has laid out.
That's right. We've seen sort of the impact that this tiered system has had on many businesses, as well as the community at large. And there was still a lot of question about the mayor's reopening plan that he laid out a few weeks ago. And one of the communities that is certainly feeling the impact is that of the fitness community and the limitation that's being placed upon them. Of course, here at Spotlight Hawaii, we want to shine a light on some of the issues and some of the communities that are facing some difficult times here during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we want to bring in two guests that are going to be joining us actually here this morning. We have from CrossFit Hawaii, Coach Kimo Kockelman, as well as Cari Nishimura from the UFC gym out in Waikele. Thank you so much both for joining us. We really appreciate you guys taking the time. We know that you are both very busy, but we appreciate it. Kimo, we're going to start off with you. How has this pandemic overall impacted your business and your operations there at CrossFit Hawaii?
I mean, just like any business, it really has crunched down on us. The initial closing of the gyms, everybody thought it was going to be for a short period. So a lot of people just sat tight, and we produced virtual workouts. And then the longer this goes on, the greater the impact to the business, because people don't see it as temporary. And even right now, it's forecasted to not gyms won't reopen, at least on the inside, for at least another 3 weeks at a minimum. So we've had to go virtual and create workouts where our members took all of our equipment home and they do the workouts online through a Zoom class. And then most recently, we've pushed to the outdoor arena out in front of one of our gyms, the fronting of the storefront. And then in one of our others, we negotiated with the landlord to have a right of entry to the entire parking lot. So now we use that parking lot.
And that's what we're hearing with a lot of businesses that have had to adapt. For a gym like UFC, obviously a much different situation. You guys have a lot of gyms located across the islands. How has this impacted you folks, specifically with the ruling itself and the numbers and sizes?
Well, just on a broader scale with us and some of the other big chain corporation gyms, we have about 8,500 members just in our gym alone. And so for that to not see those people come in, financially, it has been a great impact. But unfortunately for us, we're unable to go ahead and just take the gym outside. And so we've had to be a little bit creative as far as doing classes online. During the first part of the shutdown, I put my workout hat back on again, and I got to teach classes again via IG Live. And then so a couple of my coaches volunteered to do stuff like that as well. This time around, my fitness director is still employed, so she's able to go ahead and put workouts herself on online and is doing actual online training as well.
Okay, and we of course want to bring in the audience to ask some questions. So Charles has a question. Aloha, my question is, why can gyms open up on the mainland indoors and in Hawaii not allowed during the current tiered levels? Kimo, what's your thought on, different states obviously have different parameters about what they allow. As you see it, is the tiered system that we have in place right now too restrictive?
Very much so. In terms of, even if you just read it, things just don't make sense. In other words, for a class, so if we talk about a gym, they have one set of rules in a class. But in our situation, the entire gym is the class. So we function as a gym. But when it says outdoors, it's hard to understand why it would be limited to 5, including the coach. You have 4 people there, but you're outside. It doesn't seem like, is it something about it's unsafe? that you have more people than that, and when it's all of the outside that you can use. And even as we go through the tier structure, it really, the tier system handcuffs in a way that our business won't be able to survive. So you have to make a system where it's not just saying, hey, we open you up with these restrictions. It has to be restrictions that allow the business to survive. No one is expecting to thrive during this time, but got to give us a shot to have business as close to normal with the responsibility to keep all of our members safe. Because I don't think there's a gym owner out there that wants to be reckless. Everybody wants to keep their members safe.
I mean, Cari, I guess the same question for you, especially that even when we do get to tier 4, a business like yours that has to operate primarily indoors will not be able to have more than 50% of its capacity. Does that restriction make sense to you, and can you make it with just allowing 50% of your members at a time?
So up to the point that on this second shutdown, we actually were running at 50% capacity, largely due to the fact that there were no classes. So as of August 5th, the classes they were halted or suspended. And so we are a class-based gym as well. And with our jiu-jitsu, our kickboxing, boxing, Zumba, Pilates, yoga, all of those classes, that stopped. So when that stopped, you did see a bigger population not come in and work out as well, because they did have, that was their main focus. And then we also have kids classes too. So to not see the kids be able to come in and take their classes as well, that also stopped that operation. But, looking at trying to open up outside, I know he was wondering about the outdoor policy as well. For us to be able to go ahead and do something like that, it's a huge upfront cost for us. And, and not to mention the wear and tear on the equipment as well. But again, we were operating at 50% and we were just making it by.
And for when you're talking about some of these larger gyms like a UFC and with multiple locations, I mean, when you just look at the overhead, the rental, rent that you're having to pay for these large facilities, what sort of relief are you folks getting? Is that a part of the conversation as well, in terms of maybe possibly seeking ways where that can be subsidized in some way? Because I've got to imagine that those rents have got to be a challenge for you folks.
It's we've been very lucky. Our landlords out here at Waikele Shopping Center has been amazing. They've done whatever they could to kind of put a hiatus on us. Our corporate office has been talking to them, and they're helping us out a whole lot, because we're not collecting anybody's monthly dues at all. So during the first 3 months, didn't collect anything from anybody, and then since our shutdown on the 27th of August, nothing. So we're not operating on anything right now.
Yeah, it's got to be a challenge.
Well, Kimo, I mean, you mentioned just survival in this current economic circumstance for smaller operations like yours that might not have the backing of a large corporation. How long can you survive?
So our scenario is different. So our gym size is a situation where the community is a family. And so that family has taken it upon themselves to say, hey, I want my gym to be open when I return. So they chose to keep their membership going. In exchange, we gave out the equipment. We set up virtual workouts to still give them fitness. But as it proceeds longer and longer, people are anxious. And so as a gym owner, of course, I want my business to do better. But I'm also thinking about my members. They want to come back and work out. And right now, the current plan handcuffs me in delivering fitness into small channels of virtual workouts and outdoor workouts that limits the number of people that can participate. And so it's surviving, but how long do we stay in each tier? When do we step up? And I feel like even the way the tier structure is set up, it doesn't create the best scenario for economic health. It might be thinking about physical health, but economic health for the businesses they're allowing to reopen, it's not always a fair plan, because businesses will be shutting down.
So Kimo, when you look at sort of the tier system right now, of course, we are in tier 1, and we know the impact that has had on many of the businesses. For you folks, and in the fitness community, I should say, going on to tier 2, what would that look like for you folks? How would that change what you're currently doing and so forth? Because as Yanji said, the size is, of course, the percentage of people that are allowed in the gym. But for you specifically, as you know, if we are able to move on to tier 2, what would that look like, and how would that again change your overall operation?
So it changes the structure of our setup. So we have to function as a gym and not organize it as much as a class. And even that definition is vague. Like, does a class mean that you have the whole gym and everybody squeezes into this one smaller room? Or if the whole gym functions as a class, what's the difference if it's organized so it's choreographed so people don't share equipment, they have their own space, it's set up in a way that people can move through the gym and not run into each other? Is that a class, or is it just, nope, they just got to come in and do their own thing? And then it's so instead of 5 people indoors, you can have 25% capacity. At 25% capacity, that's how we were functioning before this shutdown. We've sectioned off the gym. I don't know if you can see, but it's all taped up. There's arrows on the ground, so there's only one-way direction. And so in tier 2, we can function, and it loosens the handcuffs a little bit, but is definitely not a business plan with the business in mind. It's a plan with overall health in mind. And I think there needs to be a better balance of economic health and everybody's health, because gym owners are going to enforce, safety protocols.
Cari, tell us a little bit about the organization efforts that you've been undertaking to try to push back against some of these restrictions.
Well, what I did was, on the first day that Caldwell decided to go ahead and implement the tier system, I decided hey, we have to do something about this. So we started a petition to try to classify gyms as essential. And so once we do that and are successful with that, it'll allow us to be open, just like as churches were deemed essential. And so this is kind of getting some groundwork moving. Everybody's a little bit more excited about it. They want our gyms to be open, all gyms, all studios as well. And so since then, Debbie Faldo from Flex Fitness, she was able to get us a spot with our Chamber of Commerce to actually sit down and try to organize something with science, with facts, and so that's, I think, for a lot of us coming from a science-based organization, I don't know if our government really is looking into the science side of everything, is how many people are contracting COVID from a gym type setting. What are the long-term effects of us not being able to work out or exercise from a physical standpoint, as well as mental health? And just from my members alone, I've had members call me at the gym and say, I've had to go on my depression medication because I can't work out. My blood pressure is going up. And if these are all the underlying health conditions that, that we're worried about when we're catching COVID, we can't do anything to fix that on this end. So we do need to kind of step up that aspect of everything, as far as, pushing the petition out, making the calls to the city council office holders, and it's just even making calls to the mayor. It's funny because I do coach soccer as well, and I'm doing web practices for my girls. And I said, hey, you know what? Let's get involved with the government. Let's go ahead and send an email out to our city council and to our mayor and see what kind of traction we can make with actually getting practice done too. So there's so much that's being affected right now.
In terms of just the overall, we're seeing some comments of people in there who, in our comment section, that are saying that gyms are high risk, that, people are being exposed, that there is the potential for, more spread in gym facilities. What would sort of be your response to those that are skeptical of allowing gyms to reopen in this format, knowing that it is a place where people are breathing heavily and there are a lot of exchanges? I mean, what are some of the things that you folks would say to counter that argument that ultimately the city is using against the reason why it's remained closed?
Well, one, we are all, as a gym owner and operator, we are all monitoring every single person that's coming in here. So we're all wearing masks constantly. We're taking temperatures at the front door. There's sanitation stations all over the place. I think it's so funny because of the fact that there's a pandemic going on. I think everybody has taken that personal responsibility of cleaning everything before and after they use it to a whole nother level. And I think just alone with the mask out here in this high ceiling type of area, I mean, you're going to be holding everything, you're protecting everybody else from what you're sending out. And I think we do a better job at social distancing and sanitation that you would than any other retail outlet too, especially like a Costco or Sam's, and not to bring them up, but it gets pretty crowded in there as well. So.
And Kimo, what would your sort of, do you have anything to add on to that same concern that many are saying that gyms are, susceptible to spread and thus why the mayor has kind of imposed this ruling?
Well, there were some images out there that I think even gym owners were shocked by. Where people are too close together, they're not wearing masks. This was early on in when the rules were not as tight. And now that they've gone through the whole indoor scenario with the mask, did people like them? No, nobody liked working out with a mask, but they adapted. They changed. And because they considered working out a privilege, they adapted and used the mask. And so in the scenario where you can create a 10 by 10 space between athletes, both athletes are masked. They're not sharing equipment. They don't run into each other. It can be an environment that's safe. So you can take a higher risk scenario. Does that mean that you can't make it safe? No, you can make it safe. You just have to make sure that when somebody looks in your gym, looks in your doors, they would say, wow, I would feel comfortable working out in that gym because of what I see in terms of how well they're spaced apart. They're not sharing equipment. They have masks on. So the business owners can make it a safe place where if the mayor walked into your facility, he would say, yeah, this is what I want people to be doing. This is the level that gyms should be running at. And I think gyms should be given that opportunity to say, hey, what does your setup look like? That's pretty safe.
I'd love for both of you to answer let's talk a little bit about the economic impact just in terms of jobs and how many studios and businesses are we really talking about here? Cari, I'll start with you. How many people would this affect in Hawaii and how many businesses do you worry are at risk of actually closing?
Well, just on the top of my head, with our 4 UFC gyms, and if you were to count 24-hour fitness, there are 7 locations, you're looking at little over 1,000 employees. And then that's because we didn't even hire everybody back yet, and so just by those 2 organizations, then you're adding in all the yoga studios, the CrossFit studios, mixed martial arts studios as well, F45, core power yoga. I mean, the list goes on. And so, that's something that we are still looking into as far as directly how many actual employees are utilizing the UI system right now because of the fact that our gyms are shut down.
Mm-hmm. And Kimo, the question for you is if a gym like yours is to close down, I would imagine that the startup cost to reopen would be pretty prohibitive for a lot of people. Like if you close down, you might close down for good.
Yeah. So I don't see a lot of people jumping into the fitness realm right now. The same way a lot of people say, I'm going to open a bar right now. So it is the businesses that are there, the gyms that are there, they have to be given a chance to survive. So not just for the business's sake, but for the people that make use of that facility, make use of that service. There are people that want to work out on a regular basis. And the way to understand those humans that like working out that much is just don't eat for a day. You don't eat for a day, you realize how hungry you get and how much you want to eat. The people that really want to work out, they want to work out and they want to be back in that scenario. And if they can't, yes, then they feel depressed. They feel like all of the investment they made in their body is going away. And if my mom or dad were to contract COVID, do I want them to be strong or weak? Do I want them to be healthy or unhealthy? And the fitness realm is how we keep our kupuna, our younger people, strong and healthy. It is a preventative measure that people can invest in. And when you take that away, it increases the risk.
The other question that this sort of brings up is just the overall community aspect of this. And Kimo, you kind of spoke about this, about being a family, that the members of your gym really coming together to kind of help to keep this going. What have you, either one of you, what have you been hearing from the ground in terms of the community? Is this something that you're hearing people want to happen? Or do you still hear people that are reserved just from the ground and where you folks are at? What are some of the responses that you're hearing from members and maybe those who aren't members of your gyms?
There's a fair amount of people that are so eager to get back, especially if they feel the environment that their gym has set up is safe for them. They're following the protocols. And there are people that are apprehensive and would prefer to maybe do a workout at home through a virtual sense. But then that's where the government shouldn't restrict to the point of you have to give the business a chance to open up, follow protocols, and for the people that are willing to come back and allow that business to survive. Once the government says you have to close your doors and your members can't enter, it takes a lot of the choice of the whole community, not just the business, but the people involved in that community on what their choice are. Like I don't have the choice anymore to go to my gym.
You know, we're talking before this about what other states are doing. Are you taking note of what some of the other restrictions are happening in other states and maybe how they are countering this, and what things can Hawaii maybe learn from what other states are doing?
Well, I think with California, they were pretty strict from the very get-go. And so I think Governor Newsom is now seeing some of the litigation coming towards him because of this. But, you know, if we are kind of mimicking what California is doing, then I would hope to think that our government here will kind of see what's happening and make some adjustments to the tier system, because right now, again, our choices to work out are being taken away, and it is up to an individual if they want to go ahead and use the gym or not. And from our membership standpoint, we do have people that ask, like, hey, you know what, can I freeze my membership for a little bit longer? I do live with my grandparents, and we all understand that completely. But there are people that, you know, to the day that we shut down, and I get messages all the time, we did everything correct. We all wear our masks. We all, you know, social distance. We wiped everything down before we touched it and after we used it. And so, you know, it's basically saying, hey, we don't trust our public. And that's unfortunate because we're the ones trying to make everything move forward.
You know, absent actually changing the tiered system, there is talk of giving businesses some more financial relief, maybe to help with lease rent and things like that. What have you folks heard on that? Is that something that you expect is coming, and what kind of a difference would that make? Kimo, we'll start with you.
I feel like for most businesses, they can't give enough money to make the business survive. Many of us have fixed costs in the thousands. And so even the largest amount that you can get in terms of help band-aids the situation for a very short period of time. And then what? And then what are we left to do when, in our case, our landlord, we are still paying full rent, even though our gym is closed, that rent is still due. So unless the fixed costs go down drastically, any money that we can apply for is helpful, but it's not going to fix the problem. And it's not even going to make a dent in that month that you apply for it, even if you get the max amount.
Okay, Cari, what's your take on that?
Well, it's just like unemployment. At some point, it is going to run out. And I think for us as a bigger gym, a bigger organization, we don't get the same, I don't want to say allowances per se, than some of the smaller gyms. So I'm happy that they get to take advantage of that. But we're a little bit different. We do have we have more branches kind of to help support us and everything, but it's still a very huge cost for everybody, I think, overall. But again, to Kimo's point, what happens after that? You know, will we be able to survive after that?
You know, our time is sort of wrapping up here, but I did want to give you folks an opportunity to maybe have one final thought. Cari, we'll start with you. If you could say something to the mayor, you know, he will be on the show next week. What would your message, if you could give a direct message to the mayor, what would that be?
I think go back to science and see exactly what's happening out there, and come take a look at what the gyms have been doing. You know, what does he want to see for a gym to have a standard as far as working out and everything? Because right now it's hurting the people more than anybody else.
And Kimo, we'll give you the final word here. Your final thoughts as we wrap up in just the state that you guys are in and looking forward for your facility.
Yeah. So I think every gym out there is following protocols. And what I would like to say to the mayor is you can't treat that word gym and apply it to just everybody that does fitness, because it looks so different. And if when they're making laws, they're thinking about one picture, one image of a gym, it's highly unfair to all the pictures that look so much different than what they're thinking about when they make the tier system.
All right. Well, we thank you both so much for taking the time to join us and giving us an insight into some of the things that you are experiencing in the fitness community. And we will ask the mayor this question specifically next week and get his thoughts. And certainly appreciate you guys joining us here this morning. Aloha.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks.
Well, very interesting to see. And we've been reading the comments and we see there's a lot of passion on both sides of this. A lot of you folks are arguing with each other about the actual safety of this. And remember, these restrictions, and Ryan, you pointed this out too, is that it's not just, gyms where you lift weights. We're also talking about dance studios, hula halau, gymnastics and different sort of group activities that involve physical fitness of any kind. And so that can be very difficult for a lot of people to take, and also stuff for kids as well. And it doesn't sound like, no matter what the rental relief would be, if that were to be offered, and at this point there's some mechanisms in place, but not to the degree that those folks need. Even with that, even at a higher level, it will not be enough.
Yeah, and a lot of these business owners having to sort of work more. They're having to adjust to the tier system, but also maintain the financial side, as well as being able to provide the services to those that continue to seek out, the offerings that they have. And so these small business owners, be it in the fitness community, in bars and restaurants, are all having to adjust. And really our intent for having this sort of segment and this topic here today was really to just engage the conversation. We know, again, as Yanji said, that there is a lot of differences in opinions right now about fitness communities and fitness gyms and facilities like those we talked to today. But it is a conversation that is happening in our community. And really what we want to do is just allow people to have this discussion, to talk about some of the things that they're experiencing and how it's impacting those in our community.
Right, absolutely. And it's important to have vigorous debate, whether you agree or not. It is important for us to at least have the discussion, because this is something that is happening to our friends and neighbors. We could see a lot of these facilities, yoga studios, gyms, what have you. We could see a lot of these folks go out of business, and it would be very hard for them to come back. So we thank you all for the passion on both sides. We read all the comments. We know you don't always agree with each other. So keep it civil, but we do appreciate you guys chiming in and giving us your thoughts. Next week, as Ryan said, we are going to have the mayor. We have the governor joining us on Monday. The mayor will be here on Wednesday. And then on Friday, we have John DeFries. He is the new head of the Hawaii Tourism Authority. Very interested to get his thoughts on the reopening of Trans-Pacific travel on October 15th.
Yeah, someone who has just sort of come onto the job. And so he certainly has his work cut out for him. A local guy who has roots here, of course, in Hawaii, and a lot of people know him in the industry. We want to get his take as Hawaii prepares for that October 15th reopening. That will include that 72-hour pre-travel testing. Talk to him about that. We'll also, of course, be talking to the governor about that. We heard from the lieutenant governor yesterday in a press conference that outlined what that will look like for Hawaii. There are still a lot of questions regarding neighbor island travel and how that is going to be facilitated with the travel back and forth between islands, not only from Trans-Pacific travel, but how that is going to be navigated through. We hope to get more clarity from the governor on Monday. And then, of course, talking to the mayor on Wednesday. This will be the first time we're actually talking to him since this tiered system has been outlined. And I know that there are many people that still have a lot of questions about that. And we hope to get some of those answers. Again, that's happening with the mayor on Wednesday.
Yeah, both of those guests invite some vigorous debate as well. And so we are looking forward to that. Until we see you on Monday, of course, we wish you a very safe weekend. As always, wear your mask, socially distance, stay safe out there. And please join us right back here at 10:30 on Monday.
Aloha. Have a great weekend.